Everybody, this is the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. I'm here with Brett Riggins. And
Hello.
Yay, welcome. Today is December 8th, and tomorrow is a very, very special day. Brett, do you want to share the news with everybody? What's happening?
Yeah, it's
tomorrow?
my birthday. No, it's not my birthday, man. It is the official release date for the Kindle version, the ebook version of How to Get Rich as a Doctor. And we are extremely excited about this book and the journey that we went on writing the book. And I mean, it's been a blur.
Yeah, and what I'm most excited is getting it in the hands of other doctors so that they can start building their real estate and realizing their potential with financial freedom and really, like we talked about in the book, wealth in all areas of their life.
Yeah. So we are recording this, recording it one day before the release. Tomorrow is the actual release of the 9th of December, 2022. And and then on the front side of this too, Thomas, the pre-release, the launch team stuff, and just letting other people read the book before it comes out and getting feedback. And it's just been awesome listening to everyone's feedback. And even before that, just letting everybody know it's written specifically for physicians, but the mindset piece and the real estate application piece is for everybody.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think that this could be applied anyone. We did specifically put in some things that may only apply to doctors. Yeah. But I would say the 80-20 of the book could apply to just about anyone who reads it and wants to invest in real estate.
Absolutely. So let's go on a little journey here, Thomas. How should we do this? I mean, we can go through the book and go section by section. I think that would be cool. But just a brief idea of how the book was written, I think in itself is very cool. Obviously, myself, I've been investing in real estate for 15 years now, and full time now for 7.5 years, something like that. Bought and sold lots of real estate. I've built passive portfolio. You and I joined Paths. Has it been 2 years?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, just over 2 years.
So, and then we built the nationwide aspect, and then just pushed on the virtual acquisition side of Connect Home Buyers. And that all came to fruition inside of this book. And we wrote this book while in Split, Croatia as well, too.
Yes.
So first time for me across the pond, and you are living nomadic. I keep telling everybody about this. So you are already over there, from Germany to London to Poland to Turkey, Croatia, and now back stateside. But we did this over there. We disconnected from the world and we focused on this. Obviously, we had some prep time going into it, built off of all that experience. And now we've got this book that's releasing tomorrow. So the thing I love about this first is on that title page, and the series is going to open up the book. You guys will see that there's the title, How to Get Rich as a Doctor. And then, Thomas, what's it say right below that?
Right below How to Get Rich as a Doctor, it's dedication to Robert Jeremy Lanningham. Am I saying
Lanningham? Lanningham, yep. Dr. Jeremy Lanningham. Jeremy's the first client of Physician Wealth Systems, is our company working directly with physicians. And he's just been an absolute joy to work with. Just an awesome guy. And, when you're around people, colleagues, or patients, that you can feel their genuineness, I guess, if that's the word. Jeremy's definitely one of those guys, and it's been an absolute blast working with him. And through him and him trusting us through this journey was what allowed the beginning of all of our processes to come together, right? All these years of experience be put together, and now this book, and just a great dedication to a great person.
Yeah, absolutely. We're super thankful for him. That's why we put that dedication in there.
Awesome. I think I stumped you on that. I'm looking at the pre-release version of the paperback, and I don't think that you are.
I just had to pull it up.
I saw the oh no look in your face. Yeah. So, and then in shooting this podcast too, Thomas, we're both in the States, but we're in two separate spots, and I'm looking at him on a computer screen right now. All right, so let's roll into this, Thomas. We've broken this thing out into 3 sections, and let's, each of us kind of took our part and then tag teamed on a couple of these things. But how about if we just kind of roll through and maybe some things that you won't. But maybe let's read between the lines on some of these things. Does that sound like a good idea?
Yeah, sure.
So go ahead.
So the book was broken into 3 different sections, right? In the first section we dove into was how to not be a rich doctor, which is essentially how to not be a rich doctor. Yes. Okay. So essentially avoid these things is kind of how we preface that. But even before we jumped into those 7 costly mistakes that you want to avoid if you don't want to be poor, we had a single chapter dedicated to mindset, because we both believe, we both know this, that mindset is by far the most important thing. Even though it's not related to real estate and real estate investing or finances, we do know that if you don't have the mindset right, you're not going to be able to do anything else.
Yep. And we had recently recorded an episode for that as well too. Big, huge piece, not only in wealth, but even in medicine. You'd had to have the right mindset to get through training, to get through school, to get through on the job training. There's so much of that requires more than what most people have the ability to do. So the first section is how not to be a rich doctor. The second section then, of course, is how to become a rich doctor. A very interesting topic as well too. And then section 3, which is the solution, the actual application of the idea of how to become a rich doctor. And it's called leveraged passive cash flow.
Yeah. And I will mention this too. This book is condensed down into, I don't know, how many pages? It's less than 150 pages, I believe.
Paperback, the full paperback version is 167.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And then no worries. The content itself wrapped up around 125. With the resources, I believe it's around 137.
Okay. Yeah. So what I was getting at there is it's not a fluffy book. There's not a lot of stuff in there that doesn't need to be in there. We tried our best to be as direct as possible and get the information that's needed to take action up front. And there's no fluff, right? So it should be a fairly quick read for most people.
Yep. And I've had a couple of colleagues read through it probably in like 4 days kind of deal. I'm sure they were very avid readers and, focused on getting through it. So easy read, quick read, but it's going to be something that you're going to have to read multiple times. And I know that we've got a few of our favorite books that we also have on that list of reading multiple times as well.
Yeah.
All right. So, Thomas, before we get into this, what's the book you're reading right now?
What's the book? Well, I'm reading a book and I'm also listening to a book. So do you want to know what I'm reading or both? Both. Okay. So the one that I'm listening to, I believe it's called The Last Law of Attraction Book That You'll Ever Need. Very, very interesting. I like it a lot. I'm actually going to buy the print copy. And then the book I'm reading is called Long Story Short, which is a book about how to tell stories, essentially.
Stories. Very, very cool. Yep. So I just finished up The Power of Now, which was Eckhart Tolle. It's an awesome book. And then I'm building off of that same idea, but the application of how-to piece of it with Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
That's a great
So
one.
How about those 2 books, man? I know you've read both of those.
Both of those books are on my reread list.
Yes.
Both of those are definitely a top 5% of the books that I've read. And I've read over 100 books. So that says something.
Yep. Awesome. Wrapping up here, the end of year 2022. I just finished The Power of Now, and I believe myself, Thomas, I'm happy to report this. I have read, drum roll. I have read 14 books this year.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy
That's
about
14
that.
more books, Brett. That's 14 more books than most people. So
I know it. And Thomas, one of them was a biggin, you can say it. You know, down here in the South, I can call it a biggin. The Laws of Human Nature, which is roughly 600 pages. That's like 3 books in itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot of
that's another one of those books that I want to reread. Yeah. Unfortunately for the size, but it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. So we could go off for hours and even do a whole episode on books. But back to this book, how to become rich as a doctor. Right? How to get rich as a doctor. Sorry, I misspoke. How to get rich as a doctor. We talked about sections. Let's jump right into section 1, which is how to not be a rich doctor. Right? And Thomas, this whole section, I think that you ended up penning a bunch of this stuff. I wrote a story here in the introduction, like leading into this, but I want to have you kind of get your points on this stuff and kind of what you were thinking first as you laid this out. When we looked at outlining the book, we looked at several ways to make it make sense, chronologically lay out. First, what is it, and then how to do it. But before that, even what is it part, there's somewhere you got to go in your mind to get there. So how did you take this first section and lay it out for it to be relevant to the physicians in the physician's life, and write it to physicians coming maybe in med school, in residency, or in full practice or nearing retirement? How did all that come together in your mind?
Yeah, so the first thing that I try to do with this first chapter all about mindset was just open the possibility that it is possible for anyone who believes in it and puts forth the effort and goes ahead and takes action. So my whole goal with this chapter, the mindset chapter, was just to make people know that it's possible. And then 2, give them some of the tools and some examples on how they can maybe start taking steps to change the direction that they previously were headed in a better direction.
Yeah, I've been working a lot on downloading, kind of like what I call brain dumping, getting this stuff out of my head. The book was a great journey doing that, but recording kind of like video pieces of the book, and that's on the YouTube where I'm putting this stuff together. But I keep finding myself, hitting back on like the power of now, this Joe Dispenza stuff and it's even before that, if you believe, you can achieve, right? And it's just laying that out, and it's tied in perfect to what you're saying about you. First of all, you've got to believe. Everything starts with a thought, then it becomes in action, right? And we turn those actions into habits, and that's how we're creating our reality.
Yeah, that is 100% true. Thoughts become your reality, and like attracts alike.
Mm-hmm.
That's straight from that book that I'm listening to right now.
I was meeting with one of our team members yesterday. We do what we call 1-to-1s, right? These monthly meetings where we get to catch up and talk with everybody. And a lot of times we'll get into like a personal kind of level, just a chance to connect. And I was telling them that, I feel like I live my life through the book that I'm currently reading. And that might be the reason why we should continue to read and reread is I'm finding solutions. And when I start thinking about things, I start seeing things. And I think that's even something you had in this section too, is you see with your mind, not with your eyes.
Yeah.
Right. And when we're in these books, we can then create the scenario or the solution in our mind that we can create a program to make it become a reality, make it become real. I was getting my haircut yesterday, and in the conversation, I love talking. In the conversation, came up like, talking about reading and all this kind of stuff, but that the stylist was actually interested in real estate and interested in reading and all of this. And my final takeaway or walkaway point, I always love to just, hopefully it brings people value, but just to let them know, hey, all you have to do is start talking about it. That's the first step, because then you're thinking about it and then you start taking action, right? But if you're talking about it, that's going to be the attraction piece too, because then you're going to say, oh, I do that too, right? And one of her favorite books was Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
Right. And Thomas, you actually had lunch with somebody today that I met, an awesome young man that's running a very, very large YouTube platform. I met him because I was carrying around that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and it attracted him to speak to me.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's the pure example of the law of attraction, huh?
Yeah. It's always so surprising when we realize that this stuff actually works. It's like, wow. Like, but really, you shouldn't be surprised because it's just like the law of gravity. It's a solid law. Like attracts alike, and what you think becomes your reality. So I can give you a few other examples of stories like that. But I think that just moving on, because we got quite a few other chapters.
Absolutely. Just to leave off of this one was it's doing the unordinary, and it's just what everybody else is not doing. That's what we're doing, right? And that's kind of like leading this mindset piece into thinking that this works. So keep moving, right? And in chapter 2, Thomas, you started writing about avoid getting poor, the 7 costly mistakes, right? Yeah. So the first one was purchasing a beautiful, expensive house, and in parentheses you had a liability. Right?
Yep.
Number 2 was buying a cool, expensive liability, in which was the car, right? Mm-hmm. The car or another toy of that manner.
That's a very common one.
Yeah.
Do that all the time.
And even doing that, I mean, when did you start talking about, just because it's the status quo, right? I'm just coming out of residency, so my income is drastically increasing. This is what the other doctors are doing. This is what the doctors I know are driving, of the house that they have. This is what people see me having, right? So these are the things where it's just a cycle, right? And the third thing was hiring a financial advisor to take care of your finances.
Yes.
Right. And that's just trusting that somebody else knows better than you do, right? And in that one, this is interesting. I'm excited to speak with financial advisors about this when they read through this and get their perspective too, of the assets under management versus fiduciary responsibility versus I don't make any money off of that, so I'm not going to tell you to invest in it, right? So I'm excited to see where that piece goes when.
Yeah, and I hope that there's not too many financial advisors that get too upset with me, because I was a little harsh maybe, but I did say, if you're going to work with a financial advisor, you just got to make sure that you're vetting them properly.
Yep.
But kind of going against that, I do believe that most people don't need a financial advisor, even if you're not financially literate. Just by putting your money into like an S&P 500 index, you could probably do just as good, if not better, than most financial advisors. Yeah, that's just kind of the sad truth for financial advisor professions.
Yeah, and I mean, Thomas, you're not a certified financial advisor, a CFA. No, you're not a CPA, certified public accountant. You're not an attorney. You're not any of this stuff. So these are just suggestions that you have, and I would mirror that. Same suggestion. And once I started investing in real estate, I left the market completely. I currently have some of the smaller stuff because our children actually have fully funded Roths that we invest for them, Roth IRAs. So that stuff I'll have in the market. And boy, once I put that stuff in there, I was just to let it grow, and then I'll be investing in real estate with it. But it just instantly got this stress back in my life that I don't like dealing with, is when's the right time to do it, and watch it go up and down. And it was just an extremely stressful point. And that very same example, I have a particular person who we work with, right? And I felt like I had money sit in cash for 2 years, and my advisor never told me the difference, right? I thought it was, hey, put this in there, take care of it, invest it, so I could go and focus on other things like real estate. And completely my fault. I go back and I look and it's never got invested. So it's like, all right, well, I thought this was kind of like your responsibility. This is your job, right? To take care of this. It wasn't. It sat there for 2 years.
Yeah. So yeah, when you have cash sitting there, I mean, we all know this, you're just losing out on inflation.
Yep. And opportunity. Yeah. So hiring a financial advisor, again, there may be a whole episode in that one alone. And if you have a great advisor or a planner, even a wealth planner, something even in my mind bigger, stick with it and work it, right? There's just ways that you can diversify beyond funds that may generally be considered assets under management. So the next one, Thomas, you wrote, stopping your education after you graduate. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So there's this, I don't know if it's true, but there's this quote that 42% of college graduates never read a book after college. And that's really depressing to me, because if you stop your education after college, then that's pretty much, you're not going to learn or grow or do anything different up until after that point. So to answer your question, Brett, what I mean by that is you want to continue to learn. You want to continue to go to classes, go to seminars, network with people, and definitely read books.
And I would say outside of your profession too, like not clinical studies, trials, not just on that. That is your passion. That's your study. I think on improving yourself. If I had to pick one thing to keep reading and keep learning on, would be self-improvement, and then pick a path in wealth generation.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Not prioritizing student loans. So that one's pretty self-evident, right? When we're not taking that, we're acquiring liabilities instead of paying off liabilities.
Yeah, and I think everybody knows that. It's just actually doing it is what's difficult.
Yep. Marrying the wrong person. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Thomas, are you married?
I am not married.
Not.
Yeah. So I am probably not the most qualified person to write this chapter or section of the chapter. Yeah. But I do know that I have heard horror stories of people who have gotten into marriages and they didn't end up working out. And it was an extremely costly mistake financially and emotionally. So you definitely want to make sure that, and there's no perfect formula.
Thomas, I will echo that with you, and I'm early in my wedded experience. I've been married happily for 10 years. It is the greatest thing that's happened in my life, and I feel like I get so lucky because of the person that I am blessed with, that God brought me. I am prepared for me. I don't think there's anybody else that could handle me, but God knew exactly who I needed. That was the absolute greatest thing. And where I am at professionally, as a man, as a person, as a father, as a friend, I couldn't have done it without her. I couldn't see another version of me without her. So I think that you're 100% right on that. And I have also heard other stories that don't work, because what is it? 50% of weddings or marriages fail.
Yeah, I don't know what the statistics are, but it's pretty
close enough. Yeah, that's just crazy. Yeah. And so beyond all of that, yes, I echo that. I think that's very, very important. And knowing who you're looking for, again, you can apply that first chapter to everything, right? Know who it is that you're looking for. Know who they are, right? Not what they are, know who they are. I think is really important.
Yeah. And on that too, I think a lot of people will always ask a question like, how do I find the one person? Or how do I find true love or my soulmate? And I don't think there's a good answer to that, because I think it's the wrong question. I think the question should be, how do I make myself the perfect date or the perfect person? And if you ask yourself that question, focus on that, then finding the right person won't be a problem.
Then the law of attraction comes into play. Yes. Yep. And that's kind of where that ties into. You stop looking, right? When you start focusing on yourself, you stop looking. You become that better person of who you need to be, not who they need to be.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Great point. All right. Tracking pennies. on the last section here in chapter 2, tracking pennies, and that's just down to the T. And I think on this one too, Thomas, you mentioned one of our favorite books that kind of started our journey with physician wealth systems was Next Door Millionaire.
Yes.
Right. Who is that? Danko, and I forget the authors of that one. You can still hear me. I'm turning around looking in my library looking for the book. Here it is.
Yeah, I don't remember who the authors were, but
Stanley and Danko.
Okay.
Stanley and Danko. Yes. So yeah, and knowing what you're spending, right? Knowing what you're spending on food, clothing, all your expenses, and knowing it and really tracking it. And I know by personal experience of if you can't handle it when there's very little, then you're not going to be able to handle it when there's a lot.
Yeah.
And that's going through watching, when early on when businesses get big, like you get this big bubble and there's all kinds of money, and it's like, well, then the waste increases, right? Your problems increase. There's a famous song called "Mo Money, Mo Problems," right? And that's what it is. If you can't focus or handle it at this amount, you're not going to be able to handle it at a greater amount.
Yeah. Or even let alone be able to get to that greater amount.
True. Cool. Well, that's chapter 2. And chapter 3 says what they don't teach doctors in school about money.
Yes.
And what tell me a little bit more about that.
So in this chapter, I don't know, I think it was around 5 different things. We'll find out here in a minute. Different lessons that they don't teach doctors or let alone anyone in school. And I don't know why they don't, but they're very important if you want to achieve financial independence. So the first lesson or thing that they don't teach doctors in school is the difference between an asset and a liability.
Mm-hmm. And what's an asset?
Great question. So I like to use the definition that Robert Kiyosaki used in his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which was an asset is something that puts money in your pocket without having to do any work. And without having to do any work is a very important piece of that.
Yep. And a liability is?
Liability is something, again, coming from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, is something that takes money out of your pocket. And it's that simple.
Yep, absolutely. And you can see that. And then you get tied in on, I was just thinking, what if there was a standard personal development class that's taught, and it's a must have in every single curriculum, and it really should be into high school. But, even in college, where it was like, you've got Jim Rohn, you've got Robert Kiyosaki, maybe, Ed Milet or somebody along those, Joe Dispenza or something, where it's like you could do something massive and that just be the new standard. I mean, what would that be like? That'd be pretty crazy, wouldn't it?
That would be very cool, but I don't know if that will ever happen, unfortunately. I think it's always you have to do it yourself, and that's why you have to continue your education after.
Yeah. Did you flip to that section in the book? What else were we talking about when we said what they don't teach doctors about it? Yeah.
So the first was the difference between an asset and liability. And just for a couple examples, an asset could be something like a business that you own, but you don't actually work in, or it could be a rental property. So if you own rental properties, you have it all outsourced. You don't have to collect rent or screen tenants, bring in a check every month. That would be an example. And a liability is anything, again, that takes money out of your pocket. So a house that you live in and pay a mortgage on, or a car that you buy, or anything that's just an expense to you. But moving on from that one, the next one was good debt versus bad debt. So in school, I had a personal finance class, and we watched Dave Ramsey. Are you familiar with Dave Ramsey, Brett?
Yeah, he actually spoke at the church I go to one day.
Yeah, so Dave Ramsey, I don't know a ton about Dave Ramsey, and he has a ton of great principles, but one of the things that, at least when I was watching him, he may have changed his opinion on this, was that you should not have debt, you should not have a credit card, never have debt, always avoid debt. But one thing that a lot of rich people do is they have a lot of debt, but yet at the same time, they're also very wealthy. And it's because they understand the difference between what good debt is and what bad debt is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's an interesting story, just a little bit of his background on how he had a whole bunch of debt and things went wrong and he had to crawl out of that hole. So, yeah, so you're talking about good debt, bad debt. We're talking about asset versus liability. It made me think of, too, another book by Robert Kiyosaki is Cash Flow Quadrant, where he laid out quadrant, just like he says, 4 sections. The E on the left side, you've got E over S, and then on the right side, you've got B over I. And the E over the S is employee. S, I believe, is small business. And then B is big business, right? And then I is investor. And it's just another one of those things where it's important to see which side of the quadrant. You want to be on the right side of the quadrant, and where basically this is performing for you, where you have these assets bringing you money, as opposed to on the left side of the quadrant, you have yourself trading time for money.
Yes. Yeah. You want to make your money work for you. So Robert talks about the rich don't work for money is one of the things that he always says, because they have their money work for them. Absolutely.
What were some of the other things that doctors aren't taught in school about money?
So the next thing that I put in here was that you are your most valuable asset. So speaking of assets, you always are going to be your most valuable asset, meaning you're going to always be able to produce the most income yourself. So just kind of going into this section, I just talk about how investing, if you're going to invest money, the best place, especially at first, is always going to be back into you, back into your skills. You can do this through going to seminars, paying for mentorships, masterminds, books, all of that stuff, so that you can increase your skills and overall increase your active income.
Yep. And I think that this quote also made it in there too by Alex Hormozi, is a great young entrepreneur, is you should be investing in the S in me and not the S&P, right? The S&P 500. And the S in me is the skill in me. You should be investing in yourself, not in the stock market.
Yep. Yeah, it's really good advice. And then moving on from that, we had 2 more in here. And the next was that your taxes are your biggest expense. And just talking about knowing that your taxes are your biggest expense. Lost my words there. A lot of people don't know that they can do anything about that. But in reality, you can. There is a lot of things that you can do to lower that. And if you can lower your biggest expense, then it's going to help a lot with reallocating the money that you're now saving each year.
When I read this part of the book, one thing that stands out to me, I think you had actually quoted a federal judge, basically saying that, it's your duty to know the tax law, to know the tax code, to keep from overpaying. And that's your duty, right? It's not your duty to pay millions and millions of taxes over the course of your life. It's your duty to know the code, know the law, to keep from overpaying.
Yes. And to read that quote, there's actually 2 different ones. I'll read the first one here. He said, anyone may so arrange his affairs that his taxes shall be as low as possible. He is not bound to choose that pattern which will best pay the treasury. There is not even a patriotic duty to increase one's taxes. He was a former federal judge or trial judge.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to look at. And, obviously we're in the world of real estate, obvious to you and I, and I doubt everybody else listening right now. But in the world of real estate, there's something big that pops up with, taxes and the benefits of taxes. And this idea of real estate professional. And that would have to be a whole nother episode to talk about and go into depth of what that means. And we'd have to have other professionals on here to express it. But that is just one way of leveraging the massive benefits beyond the straight line depreciation and all those kinds of things. But that lie in real estate. But the idea is knowing that taxes is your biggest expense.
Yes, that's right. And the last thing I put in here in this section or this chapter was the difference between active income and passive income.
Very interesting. And that also ties into, in real estate, and my mind's still stuck on this real estate professional, how that you can apply bonus depreciation as well too, on active versus passive, short-term versus long-term, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Cool. And then that leads us into section 2. In section 2, we talk about how to become a rich doctor. And in this section, there's 3 chapters. The first one being the power of investing in real estate. Massive. And, we just go into a couple things about this. Chapter 5 is the myths about real estate investing. And chapter 6 is the levels and strategies. And really, I think we just went into the assumption that everybody knows that real estate's been around forever, right? And that the benefits lie in having a tangible asset, having real world opportunity, right? Something that somebody can't just take this away from you as long as you're paying your bills. Somebody just can't take this away from you, right? A fire can't destroy you because you have insurance. Nobody can just say, oh, that's not worth that anymore and take it away from you like a stock market, right? What were some of the other things that we looked at as far as the power of real estate investing in chapter 4?
Yeah, so really we just broke down why is real estate one of the best. I believe it is the best. That could be argued, but why is real estate the best investment? And we just made a few bullets and went into depth in this chapter on why. But a couple of them were cash flow, so passive income, depreciation, which is tax benefit. You're going to have appreciation over time. You're also building equity from the passive income. You're going to have an increased rate of return using good debt or leverage, right? You're also going to have additional tax benefits. You'll have long-term security. It's also one of the most stable, and you can also diversify by investing in real estate compared to the stock market. It's much more stable. And you're also hedging against inflation with something called inflation-induced debt destruction. So just to name a few of the things of why real estate is one of the best, and then we kind of went into detail about those each individually.
Very cool. So something really simple that I love seeing this, and earlier on I created like this cartoon with another colleague of mine who's in the real estate world and went into the education platform of real estate. It was the stackable returns, and it plays into my mind is seeing this cartoon that I drew about just the stackable, and like seeing these benefits, these powers stacking up, right? And there's, like you were saying, cash flow. There's principal pay down when the tenant pays your mortgage payment. There's depreciation, and there's the appreciation. And those 4 stacked returns are amazing, and they offer massive benefits. You can hear the passion in my voice when I'm talking about this, because it's real and it's been there for so long. So absolutely love the power of investing in real estate. What are some of the myths about investing in real estate? Oh, before we got there, I remember the picture I put in the book there was with the $100,000 in cash. And I love taking people on a ride, on a journey. So if you were to just envision, I don't know if you're listening to this in a car or driving or I don't know. So I don't want to tell you close your eyes. When you're somewhere safe, close your eyes and think about holding $100,000 cash in your hands. And what that feels like is, 10 bands of $10,000. They're probably about, half-inch thick or whatever. You're holding that. You can imagine what that is. It feels like you probably smell it, the weight of it. Now imagining taking that to your assistant or taking it to your office and either asking your assistant to put it through the shredder or put it through the shredder yourself. How would you feel? That's the idea of overpaying in taxes by not knowing what your opportunities have. I just thought that was really cool because I want you to envision it. I want you to feel it. I want you to smell it. And I want you to keep that money,
Yeah, that's so true. And that's something that was awesome. Speaking of our dedication of the book with our client, just in the first few weeks, he was able to find, what was it? Like well, I don't remember the number.
Yeah, it finished out around $80,000.
Yeah, $80,000. So that's like taking 8 of those
savings. Yeah.
And burning them or shredding them, like you said.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. And then from there, Thomas, we talked about some of the myths of real estate. So what exactly was that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of myths that float around about real estate. And one of the things that I always like to point out to people is that they're already investing in real estate. So when you leave your money in your bank account in Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citibank, or you send your money to Wall Street and let it sit in an IRA or ETF or money market or bond, you have to understand that those guys call people like you and me and other real estate investors to give us your deposits to fund our deals in real estate. So you're already investing in real estate, but you're not getting any of the advantages like we just spoke of: appreciation, cash flow, depreciation, tax write-offs, etc. So one of the things that people like to say is investing in real estate is risky. And it can be risky if you have no idea what you're doing and you're not making the right choices, sure. But it is one of the safest investments. And that's why all these large banks are lending money, because they believe in the investment of real estate.
Yeah. The next thing up here, it looked like, was you need a lot of capital to get started. And I guess for me on this one is I had nothing. I didn't even have a job on paper, right? And I kind of wrote about this in the book, my journey of my first house and my experience and how I bought it. I had no money. I had somebody that knew my father. I think that's how I got the first loan I ever got for like $33,000 to buy this house, something like that, $30,000 or $40,000. So I started with nothing, and then going into the fix and flip world, we started using what's called OPM, other people's money, working with private lenders. That's when I launched my journey with physicians, was borrowing money from physicians, private money lenders. So There's absolutely, you don't have to have a lot of money to get started. But at the same time, if you have a lot of money, then you can play a lot faster if you're around the right people.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that was the second myth, is you don't need a lot of capital to get started. And then the third was being a landlord is too hard. So we've all heard this before. I don't want to fix toilets. But in reality, if you do it right, you don't have to fix toilets or fix anything for that sake. As long as you're doing it right and you're outsourcing, you're putting in the numbers when you're looking at the deals to have the property outsourced to professional property management company.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like this one too. Timing is everything. When's the right time to buy? Market up? Is the market down?
It's right now. It's this very moment. And it's always going to be this moment.
Yep, absolutely. And I actually heard another a big wholesaler guy was talking in real estate, was talking about the interest rates, because people hesitate because of interest rates. And he's like, if you're buying 5, 10, 15, 20 houses or whatever, you can just refinance. I mean, it's not like, the deals are going to be great because nobody's buying, right? So just go ahead and buy. It's always a good time to buy. Just have to make sure your math equation is right on the acquisition side. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all it comes down to is just math. It's just numbers.
Yeah. You got to keep the emotions out of it. And then we talked about levels and strategies, and boy, Thomas, I think we cut to the point and kept it simple on this one. What do you say? We've got 2. We put together 2. So we worked really hard at this and thought really, really hard. Actually, we did. It's sometimes keeping things simple is the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
So our 2 strategies are, number 1 are buy low and sell high. And number 2 is buy for cash flow and hold forever. It's simple. It's simple. Awesome. And I think one of the strategies we had with the book too, Tom, was just giving a straight path forward, not to do like the shotgun approach. I've heard you say this a lot. We're not doing a shotgun approach. We are laser focused. This is the rifle shot at this is what you can do to just generate massive wealth.
Yep. Yeah. So that's why this sequence of chapters and sections that we've written is all kind of building on top of each other and leading to the final chapter, which we'll get to in just a second here, which is leverage passive cash flow. And I think, Brett, you wrote, I think 100% of this entire section. So you'll probably fill in a lot of the gaps here.
And I think on this one, it could be a whole, I could talk for a week on this thing alone and the real world applications of it. But just looking at it, I guess before we jumped into that, it was, we looked at 3-4 different levels of investing in real estate, just generally speaking. And level 1 is the single family residential. I love about that is it's the easiest to get in and the easiest to get out of. So if you need to liquidate, if you had less time to get in, absolutely love level 1. Level 2 is a step up where we're acquiring portfolios, right? We're acquiring bigger groups of single family residentials. Level 3, I consider multifamily, and that's going to be harder to liquidate if you needed to get out, if you needed to move money around. It's going to be harder to find. You need a totally different team. But they're out there, and there's massive opportunities in multifamily as well. The level 4, I think of as commercial. And that's probably the most difficult to get in and out of as well. Those are all my opinions, but ultimately the level 1 single family residential is what we've chosen to take this laser focus on. And in these chapters, we looked at, acquiring these things 2 ways, cash versus leveraged. And then I gave specific examples. I would say apples to apples examples. If I had say 250 in cash, what could I acquire? What's the return? Right. And then if I had that same 250, if I, leveraged those 2 properties, right, I wouldn't have as much money into it and I have a higher return. But if I use that same 250 and leveraged all of it, I could have many more properties and have a higher volume of return, same percentage back. And then what we did, Thomas, is we took that and say, hey, what if we did this for the whole year, where we acquired 1 property for the whole year, so 12 properties in 1 year. And that's kind of like where we took off with that scenario and said, let's take a look at this. And I ran that scenario out and also showed how we use our resources to force equity by acquiring below market value properties. We talked about how you could acquire them 30 to 70% below market value by building a pipeline. We talked about leveraging, building your building your team. Actually, we broke it out in 6 steps, right? 6 steps. So we've got markets, where to invest. We've got leverage, how to build your real estate team. Deals, how to find 30 to 70% below market value deals. Closing, adding those assets to your portfolio. Renovations, renovating those properties. And asset management, turn your investments passive. So in those 6 steps, it's basically the how-to scenario of how to acquire them and do it in a way that creates passive income. Nothing is ever 100% passive. But the direction that we took with this is starting with the end in mind when you start with creating the processes. I want to build something that's passive as it could possibly be. So I want to build pipelines. Another story from the cash flow quadrant is pipelines versus bucket, right? And we put that in our team and leveraging people around us and giving examples for how these resources are all coming together. Those 6 steps are laid out to show you how this works. The one of the coolest things is the cash flow focus. And of those 12 properties, we really wrote about how it could be possible to take 12 properties, focus the cash flow on the smallest principal, and then the first property would be paid off in 3 years, be completely paid off in 3 years. And the 12th property would be paid off free and clear in 15 years. And this is no appreciation of market value, no appreciation in rents either. So this is a conservative look at, you could create, I believe it turned out to be like $2 million with a $250,000 investment. It's pretty remarkable, don't you think, Thomas?
That's a what is that? 9x?
Yeah, it's just right around that 10x. Yeah, so we're forcing equity, and we're creating this process where, there's a lot of work in this. Don't get it wrong. There's a lot of work in this. It is possible. It's more likely if you had a team working with you. And one of the biggest things that I preached about in the beginning in leveraging your market resources, building your team, is plugging yourself into an established team and how fast that could move you. So then if you have the ability to have that cash, then you've got your team working for you, and you can get closer to that passive income that you're looking for.
Yeah. Another thing that I like to point out is this is if you acquire 12 properties in 12 months and then you stop acquiring for the next 14 years, which I don't know anyone who would actually do that. I mean, maybe there's a few people, but I would think that most people would just continue acquiring the next 14 years. And if you do that, then those numbers are going to be, I mean, I don't know, exponentially bigger.
And the other thing here too, Thomas, is you need to be in a situation where you don't need this cash flow. The capital that you take, and I'm sure a lot of the physicians listening to this are going to be or are in the situation where you're deploying that capital somewhere, right? It's going somewhere in some type of investment. This is that one strategy that we picked, and we showed that it has massive returns. And what we do is the tenant's paying the rent, right? And that rent covers the mortgage, the insurance, the property management, the vacancies, the maintenance, all of this stuff. The arbitrage on top of that, the difference of what's left from the gross rent, is then focused at the smallest principal. So all 12 properties, we take all that arbitrage, all that cash flow, and we focus at the smallest one. That's where that snowball effect comes into play. And again, that's not taking into account the appreciation of the property value or the rents itself. And if you look at the trends in the last 50, 70 years, something like that. I have a graph there in the book, but you can easily say that the rent could almost double in that time. And I showed an example where it didn't double. I just took half of what the projected would be, and then the massive increase of what that return is. Is amazing. So all that's in the book. There's so much stuff there, Thomas. Yeah. And also in the book too, we gave that resource page so that the physicians can see these videos of me walking through deal analysis, of walking through market analysis, of our actual deal analyzer, our spreadsheet. They can download that on the resource link. Let's see what else. The cash flow focus calculator is there, so you can download all this stuff. The asset management sheet, the offer management sheet, everything that we use at Physician Wealth Systems, everything we use is at their disposal with that link in the book.
Yes. Yep.
So
highly recommend. Obviously a little biased here, but highly recommend. Picking up a copy.
You can probably hear it in my voice too. I feel like I got louder and my delivery got faster when I started talking about that. So
it's exciting stuff though. We're talking about real tangible assets, real life-changing things here. So
and the sharing the experiences we've had and of my colleagues through the years too on what works, what doesn't work, and what I don't know. I love sharing that just as much too. Just the idea of going to, for me, it's as a contractor, that's where I had started in construction management, architectural engineering, as a licensed general contractor. But going to Lowe's was like an everyday thing. I learned early on that I just stopped asking questions at Lowe's. And Thomas, that's how we met. And you met me not at Lowe's, but early on it was Costco. You were working in the electronics section of Costco, and I went in to purchase a big screen TV for the conference room.
Oh, geez, 75 inch.
Yes. So you met listen here, guy. If you don't know anything else than what's on the outside of that box, then I don't want to talk to you. Like, that's the Brett that you met, right? And that's what I'm talking about. I felt I was just over asking questions to people who don't know things or think they know, which is even more dangerous. And that's the thing. I just want to share experiences with everybody that has worked, that hasn't worked. And if we don't know something, I want to make sure that I've got the team member on with us that knows and has that specific experience and profession to help us through the challenge or opportunity that we're working with.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I mean, that pretty much is just a really fast run through of the book. Is there anything else that stands out to you or anything on the final words?
No, I don't think so. Should we share the reference or the resource link with anyone who made it to the end of this episode?
Yeah. Can you do it in the description, or how does that work?
Yeah, we could. I think we can. I'm not sure, but if not, it's just the physicianwealthsystems.com/book, the number 1-resources.
Yep.
And you can get all access to all the resources for free that we put in here.
What I'd really want you to do is to go to Amazon and search how to get rich as a doctor. That's what I'd really want you to do, because that link is inside of there. Currently, for the first week, that ebook is only 99 cents. So you can get all of this stuff in the book, and go from there, and even more resources than what we've talked about here today. We just we blew right through all this stuff, but go to Amazon, search how to get rich as a doctor, pop that first copy, and let us know what you think. Give us some feedback. Leave us a review. We'd absolutely love to chat with you, learn your experiences, and just get some feedback. And we just love speaking with everybody.
Yeah. Looking forward to seeing your guys' feedback.
Cool. Well, man, I've enjoyed this process. I feel like I've talked and talked and talked. Now I'm all excited. Now I got to get out of here. We are actually headed to the Billy Graham Library in Charlotte today. So interesting to head there. And yeah. So excited. Anything else to wrap this one up, Thomas?
No, I think that's it, Brett. So thanks everyone for listening to this episode of the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. This is Thomas and Brett signing off.
Have a great day.
All right.